Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to give it about 2 minutes just to give time for everyone to get in. Welcome, everyone. We're going to give it about 1 more minute just to give time for everybody to get to log into the webinar. All right, well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today in our webinar, Online Reviews 101. I am Jenny Tukeski, the Programming and Communications Manager here at the Better Business Bureau Midwest Plains. Just a couple of things just to let you know, we are recording today's webinar, and in the next couple of days, we will send out a follow-up email to you with a link to the webinar, as well as the presentation information today, as well as our contact information too, so that way you have it as a future reference guide. Also, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A section, and we'll answer those questions throughout the presentation today. We are very excited to have Myra Balangu this afternoon with us. She is the Executive Vice President of the Review Solutions at Third Coast Interactive. Myra oversees the company's overall strategies and initiatives by working closely with global brands, collaborating with national associations and organizations, managing the partnership with the Better Business Bureau, and with those global brands, working closely not only with the business, but the business owners too. Today, she will be talking about how reviews can be a positive impact on your business, the best methods for asking for reviews, and effective ways to respond to the reviews. So with that, Myra, it is all yours, and welcome.
Jenny, thank you so much. And again, my name is Moira. On the webinar with me today as well is Emily Elliott, who works with me at Third Coast Interactive and supports BBBs and accredited businesses when they're using the review solution platform, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So if you guys have questions, there's Emily. Drop them into the chat and she'll do her best to try and get to them before the end of the webinar. If there are any questions that are very specific to your business, or we don't have time to get to it before the end of the webinar, if you give her your contact information, we'll make sure to follow up with you afterwards. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so it's almost kind of understood that in this day and age, online reviews are important. And by that, we mean they're important to customers. So because reviews are important to customers, they by default become increasingly important to businesses like yours. Just how popular are reviews with customers? Well, based on Bright Local's local consumer survey, so they actually do one every year, and for the last 5 or 6 years, this has been pretty much a pretty steady number. It hasn't really gone down or up much at all. And what they found was 97% of consumers read reviews online. And not only that, but a sizable chunk of customers actually go to 3 or more different review sites when they're researching businesses. And so, well, we'll talk a little bit more about those sites as the webinar goes on, but just to kind of give you an idea of where most consumers are doing their research now. Okay. And because, reviews are no longer in their infancy, so they've been around at least a decade, and they've definitely ramped up in popularity, excuse me, in the last few years. And so because of that, the recency of reviews are also becoming important. And so consumers actually care when a review was written, as you can see here on this slide. And in fact, over a quarter of consumers actually expect to see reviews about a business within the past 2 weeks. And I'm going to bring this up a few times during this webinar. But when I'm talking about consumer behavior, everybody that's watching this webinar is also a consumer of some sort. And so think about your own behaviors when I talk about, stuff like what's important to consumers when they're evaluating businesses. In this case, you probably also care about when a review was written, because something that a customer experienced a year ago at a business that you're interested in giving money to may not at all be relevant to what your experience would be today. So I think people in general understand that so many things can change in such a short time frame, that when they're seeking out customer feedback online, they look at feedback that's more recent, because they assume that those customers' experiences are going to be the most similar to their own. And so this is why you have over a quarter of customers expecting to see reviews within the last 2 weeks. And of course, it goes without saying that obviously the star rating of your reviews are important. And just how important, it's usually hard to quantify, but essentially think about this. 71%, at least this survey found 71% of customers won't even consider businesses with a 3-star rating or lower. But think about your own experience. If you have a lot of options for something, right? Whether it's to go to a restaurant or maybe somebody to fix your car, would you willingly go to a business that had a 3-star rating or lower online when their competitors have better ratings? And so again, this is kind of where the star rating comes in, is you're essentially eliminating a big portion of your potential customer base if you do not have a good star rating online on these review sites. Okay. And then on the flip side of that, you are probably suspicious of businesses that, yes, they might have a high star rating, a 4.9 or 5.0, but they only have 2 or 3 reviews, especially on Google. And so in this is customers essentially expecting businesses to not only have a high average star rating, but to have several reviews that support that. And so here we see 59% expect businesses to have between 20 to 99 reviews. That's a pretty big range. To me, that just says they want several reviews. And so, they're not expecting anything unrealistic, like hundreds of reviews. Although depending on the industry that you're in, that might be the norm. So another thing we're going to talk about is evaluating your competitors in your area that's targeting a similar demographic, to kind of figure out what to aim for when you're looking at your own online reviews. But again, the 20 to 99 range just lets me know that customers want a good base of reviews where that review rating is coming from. Okay, and then something else that we've seen fairly recently is the customers actually care if you respond to reviews as a business. In fact, almost all customers expect you to respond to your reviews. And not just that, but they expect you to respond within 2 weeks. And in fact, I'll take it one step further. And unless you have a really good reason not to respond to reviews as quickly as you can, I typically recommend responding within 48 hours to a review if you can help it, especially if it's a less than flattering review of your business. And we'll actually cover later on in the webinar how to address reviews, that maybe aren't the best when it comes to, customers sharing their feedback or experience that they've had with your business. And so So, we talked about all of these factors that go into customers deciding how to choose a business, especially when they're looking at their online reviews. And you can see that it's, they need a good star rating. They have to have a lot of reviews to support that star rating. They have to be responding to these reviews, and the reviews have to be recent. So that does sound fairly overwhelming, especially if it's not something that you've yet incorporated into your business's day-to-day operations. And we are going to be talking about a tool that makes it a lot easier for you as a business. But really, the crux of this whole thing is your customers are wanting to write your review, especially the ones that are happy. And in fact, even the ones who aren't happy, right? So the good news is customers who are asked to write a review, by and large, write them for businesses. And so really what it comes down to is you just have to have a good, consistent method for asking for reviews for your customers. And that's not something that you may have ever had to do, especially if you've been in business for several decades. But since that is kind of the way of the world now, again, we have some tips and tricks that's going to make that a little less intimidating seeming for you, and also a tool for accredited businesses that also makes it a lot easier. Okay, I'm going to stop here and see if we have any questions before we kind of move on to the next section of the presentation.
There's no questions as of right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, and so this is the part where, I've been kind of talking about review sites generically. And for different businesses, that can mean different things. And so this part, I'm going to just quickly go over the top generic review sites. They're not going to be specific to any one industry, but these are the review sites that not only get the majority of reviews when customers are posting reviews online, but they're the ones that customers seek out when they're doing research. Okay. First and foremost, if you did not know that you could get reviews on your BBB profile, you absolutely can. And one of the greatest things about that is BBB does not allow anonymous reviews. And in fact, they require customer information that they do verify on the back end. And so this means that there's going to be at least 3 business days before a review is published once a customer submits it. But the nice part about that is, again, that that's going to be a verified review from one of your customers. And so they do take that extra step to validate that customer contact information. But additionally, because there's a few days before the review is published, it actually gives you the opportunity as a business to comment on the review before the review is published. And so in this way, if you're responding to a review, both your response and the review is going to be published at the same time. And you're going to see in just a second that they're basically the only review site that does that. And so it doesn't let basically the review, especially if it's a negative review, get a head start on public opinion, because you're able to append a comment to the review at the same time that the review is going to be published. Okay, so you guys probably recognize these logos, and if not, one's Google, one's Yelp, and what's Facebook. So 3, again, more popular review sites with consumers, and they're going to be generic review sites. And so they're not going to be focused on a particular industry, although I will say that Yelp, not by design, typically is more like restaurants and hospitality based than some of the other review sites. But, that's different from, for instance, Angie or Houzz, Home Advisor, who tend to be, the contractor-based services. There's medical review sites, there's a review site for attorneys. And so in this case, we're just going to focus on the ones that aren't industry specific. So all these review sites do not allow anonymous reviews. Google is always going to require an account. Yelp does too. Facebook is actually going to be tied to the reviewer's Facebook profile. And to get reviews on Facebook as a business, not only do you need to have a business page on Facebook, but you have to have reviews enabled. And so that's your choice if that's something that, number one, you see your competitors are doing. Number two, if that's something that you're targeted demographic tends to do. I will say that a lot of older people tend to have a Facebook profile. So what's nice about Facebook is they already have a Facebook account that they're logged into. And so they don't necessarily have to log in or remember their password or anything like that when leaving feedback on a Facebook business page. All of these review sites publish reviews immediately. So like I was saying, in contrast to BBB, it doesn't give you, the business owner, an opportunity to respond to a review before the public sees it, right? So a review can actually be online for a while before you're even made aware of it. And we get businesses that call us all the time that didn't realize they had a negative review on Yelp or a negative review on Google. It's been up for a couple of weeks and they're trying to figure out how to best address it. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And we get a lot of questions about Yelp's filtering of reviews. And really what it means is they designate some reviews as recommended, some reviews as not, and they're pretty secretive about what goes into that. Working with reviews for as long as we have some kind of best practices when customers are leaving reviews on Yelp to kind of decrease the likelihood that the reviews are going to be filtered. And again, a filtered review means that that review is not going to be, number one, displayed on your profile at first. A customer has to click on basically showing the not recommended reviews in order to be able to read them. And secondly, they're not factored into your Yelp rating. And so what's really frustrating for a lot of businesses is it seems that the negative reviews are the ones that are recommended on Yelp. And they have a plethora of 5-star, 4-star reviews that are all getting filtered and so not being factored into their Yelp rating. And so if that's something that you're having an issue with, definitely let us know, whether dropping your contact information in the chat or letting Jenny know so she can pass your information over to us, because everything to tackle Yelp is kind of on a business by business basis, but we do have some strategies that have proved effective for the businesses that we've worked with in the past. And then the other thing too is, these reviews can be removed, at least for Google, they can be removed without warning and they don't even have to let you know. I've definitely seen my own reviews show up on a business's Google page and then just disappear after some time. And so that's something else to keep in mind. And that's something that obviously BBB is not going to do. So any questions? Okay. And as Jenny mentioned, she is going to have the presentation available for you to view later if you wanted to kind of look over these bullet points a second or third time, as well as the recording. Okay. And so having said all that, consumers still trust Better Business Bureau reviews the most. And I think it's still because that BBB torch, that logo still carries a lot of weight with it. I think consumers see that and they instinctively know that there's got to be another layer of verification that BBB is doing that the other review sites are not. And they would be correct. But I think even if consumers didn't know the exact process that the BBB goes through in order to verify reviews, they kind of just instinctively know that those reviews are going to be more trustworthy. Now, Google by far gets like the biggest volume of reviews. And part of that, of course, is they have the most popular search engine. And so it's kind of an unfair competitive advantage since everybody uses Google to research that they also have their own review platform. But with that being said, it actually works out in your favor as an accredited business that Google gets a volume, a very high volume of reviews, and BBB doesn't necessarily, because number one, since consumers trust BBB reviews still, everything else being equal, you have a really good BBB review and then maybe a not quite as good Google review, that BBB review is going to carry a little bit more weight. And because BBB doesn't have the volume that Google does, you don't need a lot of reviews on your BBB profile to make an outsized impact on consumer perception. And so I think, especially if you look at some of your competitors' Google reviews, it can be really daunting. there's going to be businesses out there with 50 reviews, 100 reviews, hundreds of reviews. And it seems that it's, you know, a losing battle to try and kind of match that, especially in such a short period of time. Because of course you don't want your reviews to get too old too, right? But the nice part about BBB again is because consumers trust BBB reviews, but they don't expect quite the same volume. You only need a handful of great BBB reviews to really make an outsized impact on the online reputation of your business. So it's just something to keep in mind. And I think it's a really good reason to prioritize BBB reviews because just a handful of them can make such a huge difference. Any questions about any of that so far?
We're still good.
Great. Okay. And so having said all that, knowing that reviews are important to businesses like yours and BBB reviews important to consumers, the BBB has partnered with the Review Solution. So the Review Solution is the name of the app. And what it does is it's available to accredited businesses and it helps you request reviews directly from your customer to make it super, super easy and not something that seems a little, you know, too daunting of a task. And this is how the app works. So one of the things I want to make sure everybody on the webinar is clear on is the app is downloaded by the business or the people within the business. And so your customer, any customer, does not have to download anything. And that's very different from a lot of these review sites too, because most apps in general are going to be consumer facing. And this is one of the few review apps that's 100% just for the business. So your customer doesn't even have to know that you're using an app to request a review, right? And so you download the app onto your devices, whether that's going to be your cell phone or your desktop computer. You can have it on your tablet. And if you have questions about a specific device, that's definitely something we can answer either during the webinar or after. And this is what the app looks like when you open it up. So you can see that the top field has your business name. So in this case, it's going to be Third Coast Interactive because that's our business name. And then a field for your customer's name, and then a field for their phone number. And that's it. So all you have to do to request a review from your customer is type in their name, their phone number, and then hit the send button. And in fact, it can even be easier than that because our app also has a feature that allows you to integrate it directly with your phone's address book. So, you know, for a lot of the businesses that operate off of their phones, you have your customer information on your cell phone. You can pull that information directly into the app. So you're not even having to type in their name and number, right? You just start typing in the first few letters of their name, a drop down is going to appear, and then you can select the correct contact. And so what's nice about this feature, again, is it cuts down on typos for you having to, you know, remember your customer's phone number right then and there if they haven't given it to you. And this makes it really easy to do that. However, if you don't want to pull in that information into the app so the app can access it, you're welcome to do it the way that I just showed you. So it's not going to affect how the app functions. It's just a different option to make it a little bit easier. Okay. And so again, let me just go back here. Name, number, hit send. Your customer gets this text message. So it's very instant. You know, it's about as quick as it takes to send a regular text to somebody. And this is what the text message looks like. So you can see that it's going to have their first name. Thank you for choosing. It's going to have your company name. And then would you be so kind as to leave us a BBB review? So up until this point, your customer hasn't had to do anything except for agree to receive a text message from you. And they, you know, depending on how your business is set up, you could have received that permission when you first took them on as a customer. And so again, name, number, send, they get this text. So far, all they've had to do is click the link in the text message, and it takes them directly to where they can leave you a BBB review. And so the whole process, you putting in their name and number, hitting send, and them receiving it, I mean, it takes a few seconds tops. So the only thing that's left for your customer is to actually write the review. So they haven't had to download anything. They haven't had to search for you on your BBB, the bbb.org website, or try to find your BBB profile or figure out where they can actually leave you a review on that profile. What it comes down to is takes them directly where they need to go. All that's left is for them to actually write the review. So any questions about that process so far? Okay. It doesn't look like we have any questions, so I'll just do a very quick summary. And again, it's taking, the explanation for this takes a lot longer than actually operating the app itself. So again, it's very easy. All you have to do is you just need their name, their cell phone number, and then you hit send. Your customer just needs to open the text message and click the link in order to be able to leave the review. The text obviously is going to get a higher response rate than emails in general. And the nice part, again, if you remember from earlier, I talked about the BBB verifying customer information. Well, what happens is when you send a text to your customer and they click the link in that text message, that validates their mobile number simultaneously. And so the BBB doesn't need to separately validate that information and make sure it's a valid number. By them being able to click on the link that you sent them, it automatically confirms that that's a valid mobile number. And so what's nice about this is the review is going to come in as if it's from, basically let the BBB know, hey, this consumer has verified their contact information. They don't have to take an extra step to verify it. And so the chances of that review getting published is a lot higher than if a customer were to submit a review on the BBB website, and then they have to independently verify either their email address or their mobile number, and then do that before their review is able to be published. And so that's what's nice about using the app, is it basically does the validation for them. Okay. And another thing the app lets you do is it lets you track all of the different review requests that you're sending out as a company, so that you can see, the status of each one, if this particular customer left you a review, and which one of your team members are actually sending out review requests like they're supposed to. Questions about that? Jenny's got a great question. So can a business customize a text message, or is it a standard text message that is sent out with just the company's name? That's a great question. And so the standard text message is not able to be customized on the free app that's provided to all accredited businesses for your BBB. The premium version of the app, which I'll talk about very, very briefly at the end of the presentation, you are able to customize the text message that goes out. But the text message that I showed on the presentation, which again, you guys will have access to after this webinar, that is basically that's the wording of the text message for the app. That's a really good question, Jenny. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Oops. Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about how, the process for asking for reviews can be really daunting. Now, I've told you about a tool that can make that process a lot easier, but there's still a couple of tips and tricks that you probably haven't necessarily mastered yet that's going to help you with that immensely. And I'll just go over them very briefly here. The number one thing is, whenever possible, ask at the point of service. Think about your own behavior as a consumer and all the different types of businesses that you patronize on a day-to-day basis. And when are you the happiest with those particular businesses? And probably right when you receive the good or service that you're paying for, right? So maybe you had your tires checked a couple weeks ago, and they were very nice and polite and, gave you a fair price. 3 weeks later, you're probably not thinking about that. And so it's really important, especially when it comes to your satisfied customers, to ask them right at the point of service. because the further away they get from the marketplace interaction, the less likely they are going to, of their own volition, go online and leave you a review. Now, of course, the exception to that is if they had a negative experience with your business. And I think this is where people tend to think that reviews skew negative just because